Exposed. The tax-free real estate empire funded by your student loans. The diploma lay on the courtroom table like a receipt. The judge didn't look up as he read the order. Wage garnishment for unpaid student loans. Behind the graduate, a clerk stamped the file. Case closed. Here's the part nobody tells you. One line in a campus land deal helps explain why this happens. Every month, rent escalators tick up on buildings students never own, built on land that never pays taxes. Meanwhile, $1.7 trillion in student debt keeps the payments flowing. To understand why a degree turned into collateral, we need to go back to the campus land grab. The pivot, from classrooms to property portfolios. Walk a city dominated by a prestigious campus, and you'll feel it. Blocks of brick and glass stitched together by banners and branded gates. What looks like a school is also a landlord. Across the country, colleges and universities hold more than 1 million acres, much of it in places where land grows more valuable just by sitting still. Tax-exempt status turns that land into a compounding asset. No property tax bill. No pressure to sell. The balance sheet thickens, quietly. Cities notice the gap. Fire, police, roads, schools, someone has to pay. So municipalities ask for pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, voluntary checks instead of tax bills. In Boston, in New Haven, in towns tied to a flagship campus, these payments rarely match what a fully taxed portfolio would owe. It's a polite IOU in place of a legal obligation. Residents make up the difference. On paper, expansions read as academic use. In practice, many become commercial nodes wrapped in philanthropy. Conference centers with hotel dynamics, research parks with corporate tenants, innovation hubs with cafe rental economics. Put a classroom nearby, and the footprint inherits the shield. The map fills with tax-free parcels that look and operate like businesses. What funds this build-out? Endowments play a role, but not usually the way families imagine. The largest endowments are managed like sophisticated investment funds with allocations to private equity, venture, and real estate. Payout policies favor long-term growth. Only a slice is spent each year. The portfolio chases returns as a hedge fund might, and the campus benefits, but selectively. Meanwhile, development partnerships and long-ground leases bring in private capital to accelerate construction without showing debt on the university's books. The costs return as long concessions and rent escalators borne by students and affiliates. Inside the institution, the signals change. Amenities become strategy. A new student village with resort features. Branded recreation complexes. Glass-walled learning labs that photograph well for rankings. These aren't just buildings, they're price justification. In a marketplace where sticker price anchors perception, capital projects communicate worth. And in a competitive arms race, the quiet rule is simple. If your peer builds, you build. There's a budget story hiding in the blueprints. Administrative layers expand to manage compliance, branding, student life, corporate partnerships, and sponsored programs. Construction programs need planners, lawyers, and communications teams. None of this is frivolous in isolation. Together, it shifts spend away from instruction, the core reason students came, toward the machinery that sustains expansion. The classroom stays, the portfolio grows around it. Microstory. The city comptroller stares at a spreadsheet. Revenue is short, calls from the fire chief, and the school superintendent stack up. That same week, the university cuts a ribbon on a luxury living-learning complex, fitness studio, makerspace, global lounge. The pilot check arrives later. It's less than a third of what full property taxes would have been. The comptroller sips cold coffee and pencils in a fee hike for residents. Tax-exempt land has a second life when paired with creative partnerships. A developer finances new beds on university dirt under a long lease. The building looks like campus housing, often markets as such, and benefits from captive demand. In exchange, the developer gets predictable occupancy and an escalation ladder indexed to inflation or a set schedule. For the institution, it's off-balance sheet capacity. For students, it's rent that can't be shopped across town in the same way, folded into a cost of attendance, number that lenders will cover. Endowments are sometimes framed as the answer. Why not spend more to reduce tuition? But payout discipline and donor restrictions keep large pools insulated. Investment offices optimize for growth and risk-adjusted returns, not for direct tuition offsets. The result is a paradox: rising endowment charts alongside rising price tags. The mission statement talks about access. The financial statements prioritize compounding. Meanwhile, nearby neighborhoods feel the pressure. When a university acquires a taxable parcel and moves it into exempt status, the tax base shrinks. Land banking for future expansion tightens local supply. Small landlords compete with institutional capital and campus-tethered demand. Zoning negotiations tilt toward the anchor institution. After all, it's the biggest employer, the brand on the postcard, the political heavyweight with a development pipeline. The city balances growth against displacement and service strain, with fewer tools each time a block goes tax-free. Here's the hinge. Real estate turns education into place-based finance. The campus isn't only selling instruction, it's monetizing location. Dining, parking, events, labs, beds. Each becomes a revenue stream enhanced by tax status and captive users. Students don't just attend, they rent, they swipe, they subscribe. And because the land is patient, the model compounds over decades. But expansions need a funding hose. Tuition climbs faster than wages. Federal loans guarantee payment. Aid packages blur grants with unsubsidized debt. Families see a net price. The institution sees a predictable cash flow supported by government-backed lending. The property portfolio can grow because the payment system rarely fails. Students leave, but the loans stay. Debt becomes the engine that keeps the lights on in buildings the students will never own. This was the moment everything changed. When universities realized growth didn't require classrooms first, just cash flows that could be pledged, bundled, or partnered. The pivot wasn't announced. It arrived as a campus map quietly turning into a real estate plan under the banner of learning. The debt engine, tuition inflation, and federal loans. Tuition didn't just rise, it sprinted. Over roughly 2 decades, advertised prices climbed around 170%, while median wages lagged far behind. Families watched the gap stretch year after year, then bridged it the only way the system encourages: federal loans. That backstop changes everything. Risk that would sit with an institution shifts onto 18-year-olds and the taxpayers who guarantee the promise. The school collects on time. The student pays for decades. Here's how the pricing game works. Colleges publish a sticker price, shocking, unforgettable, useful for anchoring expectations. Then they discount it through institutional aid. High achieving, high income, low income, out of state. Each gets a number tailored by algorithms that estimate willingness and ability to pay. The result is price discrimination. Different students pay different net prices for the same seat. Discount rates rise, but so does the sticker, so the average paid creeps up anyway. It feels like a deal. It isn't. The federal loan program oils the gears. With Stafford, Plus, and Grad Plus, the government ensures there's cash for enrollment. Schools are paid upfront. Servicing companies collect over years. Defaults and forbearance happen downstream, away from the campus budget. That separation weakens cost discipline. If nearly every family can borrow to meet cost of attendance, there's less immediate pressure to constrain that cost. Loan limits for parents and graduate students stretch especially wide. The effect is simple: more oxygen for price. Aid letters blur categories. Grants appear next to subsidized loans, which sit beside unsubsidized loans, which sit beside Parent Plus. Each line item in the same friendly font. A family reads award, here's help, and misses the compounding interest that begins the moment the funds disperse. Servicers have little incentive to prioritize clarity. Forbearance pauses payments but capitalizes interest, growing balances quietly. Income-driven plans promise relief, but can yield negative amortization for years, the principal barely touched. Microstory. A guidance counselor walks a family through an aid package from a mid-tier private. The first draft listed a healthy grant. After verification, the grant reappears as unsubsidized loans while a Parent Plus line fills the gap. The total out-of-pocket looks identical. Only the time horizon changed, from 4 years to 25. The student nods. The parent signs. Nobody in the room mentions amortization tables. Follow the money, and you see why capital projects flourish while instructional budgets flatten. Borrowed tuition dollars arrive fungible. They pay faculty, yes, but they also service debt on prior buildings, fund administrative growth, and support amenities that justify price. Construction and depreciation enter as fixed claims on cash. Operations bend around them. The federal backstop turns tuition into a more reliable stream, which underwrites more borrowing, which supports more building. It's a loop. The model reshapes lives. Graduates delay households, home purchases, and risk-taking. Entrepreneurship looks reckless when a loan servicer drafts your account each month. Career choices narrow toward employers that pay more, not those that fit better. Teaching, the arts, public service, these shrink. As options and less subsidized by family wealth. The campus promised freedom through learning. The payment plan delivers caution. Sticker price versus net price becomes a shell game in the aggregate. Institutions point to rising discount rates to argue affordability, but the aggregate revenue per student often continues upward. Need-aware, admissions tilt seats toward students who can pay more. International enrollment becomes a revenue hedge. Full-pay applicants who stabilize budgets when domestic aid grows. Professional master's programs price at premiums and subsidize other units. The spreadsheet sees students as a segmented market. The mission statement says they're scholars. Debt also masks the cost of time. Transfer penalties and credit evaluation games add semesters. Program prerequisites stretch into fifth years. Each additional term carries housing, meal plans, fees, bundled costs that loans conveniently cover. Housing becomes the lever, mandatory first-year dorms, required meal plans, living learning fees. Off-campus options exist, but proximity and policy keep many students in the bundle. Rent flows to university affiliates or private partners tied by concessions with built-in escalators. Meanwhile, federal policy meant to widen access inadvertently finances a construction arms race and administrative sprawl. Schools without billion-dollar endowments compete on amenities and branding to avoid sliding down rankings that drive applications. The safest way to fund that competition is predictable revenue. Loans provide that predictability. The payoff for the institution is immediate. The cost to the borrower is deferred and dispersed. You might ask, don't endowments ease tuition? Large ones can, but payouts are small relative to total budgets and many funds are restricted. Investment offices optimize for growth. Finance committees guard spending rules. A 1% change in payout can move millions, but boards fear shrinking tomorrow's cushion. So tuition rises and the aid apparatus expands, with loans filling the gaps that philanthropy won't. This was the quiet bargain. Federal loans would unlock education for all, and institutions would focus on teaching. Instead, the guarantee turned students into dependable cash flows. The degrees still matter. The debt matters more to the monthly budget. Debt fuels growth, but housing turns it into rent, fixed, escalating, and hard to escape. That's where we're headed next. Student housing as an asset class. Debt fuels growth, but housing turns it into rent. That's the bridge between a tuition invoice and a 30-year revenue model. Over the last decade, student housing graduated into a standalone asset class, predictable, seasonal, and backed by a captive market that renews every August. Investors call that durable demand. Students call it mandatory. Look at how the money moved. In 2022, Blackstone took American campus communities private in an all-cash transaction valued at approximately $12.8 billion, including assumed debt, folding the largest U.S. student housing owner into its core plus perpetual capital vehicles, Bright and Blackstone Property Partners. That wasn't a one-off trophy buy. It signaled something bigger. Student housing had matured enough for the world's largest real estate platforms to treat dorms like distribution centers, modulable cash boxes with steady occupancy and annual rent bumps. Why does it pencil? The cycle is simple. Applications in the spring, pre-leases by summer, move-ins compressed into a week. Beds fill because degrees require bodies on campus, especially for first years locked into housing policies. Even when enrollment dips at the margins, flagship and selective campuses hold demand. Lenders like the stability. Private equity likes the escalators. University-affiliated housing sits in a sweet spot. It isn't always owned by the school. Increasingly, it's built through public-private partnerships on university land. The deal often runs like this. A developer finances and operates the building under a multi-decade ground lease. In exchange, they get access to university marketing, priority placement in housing portals, and sometimes occupancy guarantees tied to enrollment. The property may sit on tax-exempt dirt, lowering carrying costs. Students see campus housing. Investors see an annuity. Those concessions come with fine print. Rent escalators indexed to inflation or preset step-ups push rates predictably upward. Meal plans bundle with beds, lifting effective rent. Fees proliferate, community amenities, technology packages, furnished unit premiums, each defended as student experience, each designed to layer margin. Because cost of attendance calculations include housing and meals, federal loans can stretch to cover the whole bundle. Debt flows in, rent flows out. Amenity escalation drove the last building boom. Resorts set the template. Gyms with climbing walls, study lounges branded like co-working spaces, rooftop grills, makerspaces, gaming dens. The promise wasn't luxury for its own sake. It was differentiation in saturated markets where proximity couldn't be the only sell. At flagship campuses, the arms race nudged prices up across the board. Off-campus operators learned to mirror the pitch. Steps from class, shuttle service, student-only security, and priced accordingly. The difference between independent apartments and student housing is control. In conventional multifamily, tenants churn unpredictably. In student housing, leases align with semesters. Turnover is orchestrated. Marketing windows are tight, which drives coordinated demand capture. Operators pre-lease with incentives early, then raise rates as the clock ticks. Missing the window is catastrophic. Hitting it locks a year of revenue. Software tracks every bed like inventory. That precision is why institutional capital crowded in. There's a city story attached to every glossy residence hall. When a building sits on university land, the parcel's tax-exempt status can shield the underlying value. Pilots might cover a fraction, but they're voluntary and negotiated. For local budgets, each conversion of a taxable parcel to exempt status means less revenue for services. Meanwhile, the housing forms a quasi-monopoly within a few blocks. Foot traffic, safety patrols, branded shuttles, tilting the rental market away from small landlords who can't match amenities or the implied endorsement of the university crest. Students feel it in fees more than in square footage. A technology fee for in-room routers that lock you into the building network. A community fee for events you never attend. A mandatory meal plan that exceeds your appetite but aligns with campus dining revenue targets. In a PPP, those charges help the operator hit their concession covenants. For the university, they keep affiliate revenue flowing without adding headcount. Here's where incentives collide with affordability. A university can point to scholarship dollars, but housing sits outside the tuition line. Aid offices bundle it into cost of attendance. Loan programs absorb the increase. Because the debt is federally backstopped, the risk of vacancy for operators shrinks. When a cohort struggles mid-year, rent still posts. When graduation approaches, renewal prompts start months earlier. Every bed must be spoken for. Blackstone's ACC buyout closed the loop industry watchers had expected. With a permanent capital vehicle hungry for predictable yield, student housing joined a portfolio logic that also holds apartments, warehouses, and life sciences labs. The sales pitch emphasized shortage of quality supply near top universities. That line carries weight. Zoning fights, neighborhood pushback, and construction costs constrain new supply near high-demand campuses. Scarcity plus captive demand equals pricing power. But the model leans on a hidden subsidy, the university's brand and land. The crest disarms parents who assume campus-affiliated equals fair. The ground lease lowers costs that competitors carry. The housing policy funnels first years and often sophomores into on or near-campus beds. And the federal loan system ensures the rent gets paid. None of this is illegal. It's optimization. Meanwhile, maintenance and capital cycles introduce their own pressures. PPP contracts often include reserve requirements for replacements, but when inflation hits or interest rates rise, operators push harder on rent to maintain returns. Universities face a trade: accept higher student costs or renegotiate terms that can trigger penalties. Most choose the former and update brochures with new amenities. The pivot is complete when the residence hall stops being a service and becomes a product, priced to a market the institution helped design. Students aren't just residents, they're throughput. Each August proves the thesis again. Beds filled. Escalators ticked. Debt covered the difference. The city is subsidy, pilots and tax exemptions. While the residence halls hum, something else hums across town. The tax office printer spitting out bills the university will never see. Nonprofit status shields the core campus, but the footprint isn't just classrooms and labs anymore. It's research parks, conference venues, theaters, garages, biotech incubators, and student villages. Many sit on parcels classified as educational use. That classification unlocks a quiet subsidy. Property that consumes city services without paying into the property tax base like a commercial peer. Municipal budgets run on basics. Property taxes fund fire trucks that respond to lab alarms, road repairs for shuttle routes, and police overtime after rivalry games. When a university acquires a taxable parcel and moves it into exempt status, the tax base shrinks. The costs don't. Cities turn to a workaround called pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. They're voluntary negotiated checks that try to mimic a portion of what a tax bill would be. On paper, it signals partnership. In practice, the numbers rarely pencil out. Boston is the example mayor's site. With multiple universities controlling prime real estate, the city built a formal pilot request program. Institutions are asked to contribute a percentage of their would-be tax bill. Some pay close to the ask, many don't. The gap lands on homeowners and small businesses, or becomes deferred maintenance. In New Haven, Yale's large holdings shape downtown finances. A mix of state support and voluntary payments helps, but local leaders still juggle growth against services stretched thin. In West Harlem, Columbia's expansion pressed into dense neighborhoods. The benefits, jobs, investment, streetscape upgrades arrived with displacement pressure and the conversion of taxable blocks into an academic enclave. Meanwhile, service-strained compounds. Fire departments train for lab hazards unique to campus research. Paramedics staff game days like festivals. Public works times projects around move-in weekends measured in thousands of cars. The city covers seasonal surges because the city must. Every ambulance run and patrol shift becomes part of a subsidy stack no one itemizes. Land banking is the quiet tactic. Universities buy strategically for future academic use. Buildings sit half-occupied or repurposed as administrative annexes while avoiding the tax rolls. Each acquisition narrows options for local housing and retail. When the expansion finally moves, rezoning debates tilt toward the anchor institution armed with renderings, donor pledges, and economic impact studies. Small landlords see valuation jump but leverage shrink. Competing with a tax-exempt buyer that never faces a carrying cost penalty changes the market. Cities negotiate community benefits, affordable housing set-asides, scholarships for local students, commitments to hire residents, support for schools. Some of it lands. A new park appears, a streetscape is improved, a training program launches. But the structural math stays intact. The campus accumulates value tax-free. The city carries the fixed costs of being a city. Pilots, even generous ones, aren't the same as a predictable, legal obligation that scales with assessed value. Inside City Hall, leverage is uneven. The university is the largest employer, the cultural brand, the donor to civic causes, the partner in federal grants. Saying no to a rezoning or insisting on full freight payments risks losing a lab expansion or a student entrepreneurship hub mayoral press conferences are built around. Planning boards weigh planes of glass against police overtime. The calculus bends toward yes with conditions, knowing those conditions will be revisited later. Displacement isn't only about rent. It's about identity. A corner diner that survived 3 recessions gets priced out when a block flips to student-focused retail. Chain salad, bubble tea, study cafes with a $6 cover disguised as a latte. Staff who serve the university, custodial, dining, security, commute farther because near-campus rents track student willingness to borrow. A neighborhood that once mixed families, retirees, and grad students becomes student-dominant, cycling every year, with little political patience for schools, parks, or services they won't use long. Pilot defenders point to payroll taxes, sales taxes, and the broader regional economy. Those matter. Jobs, conferences, and visitors spin through restaurants and hotels. But property tax funds the baseline. When a hydra-headed campus expands its exempt footprint while outsourcing high-margin activity to affiliates on the shielded dirt, the city subsidizes the conditions that make those margins possible. That's not malice, it's incentive design. There's also a governance loop. University trustees often include real estate developers, financiers, and civic leaders. They understand value, zoning, and cap rates. Their fiduciary duty runs to the institution. City councils face elections and budgets that break if a mill rate ticks up. Both sides speak finance, but to different bottom lines. The result is sophisticated transactions, ground leases, air rights, tax-exempt bonds, whose local implications show up slowly in service calls and rent surveys. Meanwhile, the student housing machine we just walked through rides these same rails. A PPP project on exempt land pays pilot light while drawing on city infrastructure and safety nets. Rent escalators compound without a property tax counterweight. The spread becomes someone's return and everyone else's bill. Families don't see that line item. Homeowners do. So the city becomes an uncredited cosigner. It guarantees the environment for the campus portfolio to appreciate, then backfills the services that appreciation requires. When budgets tighten, libraries cut hours while a new innovation hub cuts a ribbon. That dissonance isn't a story about bad actors. It's a story about a tax code written for a different campus era and a growth model that learned to read it closely. Administrative bloat and the luxury arms race. Inside the catalog photos and drone shots, a quieter math takes hold. Faculty lines thin while offices multiply. Walk the org chart from a decade ago to today, and you'll see new vice provosts for student experience, equity, innovation, strategic partnerships, enrollment strategy, data analytics, brand architecture, each with teams, software, consultants, and space. Compliance rules grew, student services matter, but the cumulative effect is weight. Budgets tilt from classrooms to coordination. Adjunctification fills the gap. Tenure-track hires stall. Contingent instructors cover more sections at lower pay with limited benefits and no voice in governance. Departments learn to do more with less while central administration learns to do more about more. It's not a secret plot, it's a budgeting reflex. When capital projects lock in depreciation and debt service, variable costs get squeezed. Instruction is variable. Faculty groups and scholars have documented this asset for wealth extraction shift, alongside adjunctification and real estate expansion. Amenities become the visible front end of that logic. A climbing wall isn't about climbing. It's an index of scarcity of attention in a market where every peer highlights lifestyle. A glass-walled gym signals affluent parents that this price buys a certain campus experience. Rankings reward expenditures, student satisfaction surveys, and retention. Shiny buildings correlate with all three, so they multiply. When your competitor opens a living learning complex, your admissions team can feel it in the yield numbers. The arms race isn't rhetorical. It shows up in fall deposit reports. There's a memo every CFO writes in their head. Debt service first. Utilities, payroll, insurance next. Then maintenance, then instruction. Each new complex adds an annuity of costs, bond payments, upkeep, staffing, that outlast donor headlines. When revenue tightens, hiring freezes arrive in academic units while the campus tour stays world-class. You can't photograph smaller discussion sections. You can photograph the new esports arena and the innovation hub with branded maker machines. Microstory. A humanities department prepares its annual budget request. 2 retirements left vacancies. Enrollment is steady, writing-intensive courses capped small. The dean says no lines this year, but would consider adjunct coverage. That afternoon, the university Instagram posts a fly-through of the new student village. Sauna, meditation room, saltwater pool. Comments flood in with heart emojis. The department chair drafts a petition and never sends it. Everyone knows where the money went, even if the spreadsheet doesn't say pool. Administrative growth has its own engine, metrics. Retention analytics need analysts. Student well-being programs need case managers. Title IX offices need investigators and advocates. Procurement centralizes to manage PPPs and vendor contracts. Communications scales to maintain brand and donor relations. None of these are fake jobs. They're responses to policy, risk, and competition. But as they grow, the distance between person and classroom grows too. Faculty become one stakeholder among many. Instruction becomes one cost center among many. Branding logic ties the pieces together. Price must be justified not by marginal improvement in pedagogy, which is hard to signal, but by visible, social-proofed assets. An innovation district, adjacent to campus, announces relevance to industry and donors. A conference center and hotel telegraph prestige. A culinary hall pitched as a learning lab doubles as a recruitment set piece. The logo spreads across a city block like a financial statement whispered through signage. Debt makes the incentives durable. Once a campus borrows for capital, maintaining bond ratings becomes existential. Ratings agencies parse ratios, operating margin, expendable resources, debt service coverage. Presidents get graded on those as much as on learning outcomes. Cutting amenities risks enrollment. Cutting administration risks compliance and fundraising. Cutting instruction is quiet and reversible on paper. So instruction gets trimmed at the edges, semester by semester, while the capital footprint stays immaculate. Student fees backfill the model. Beyond tuition, Student Life charges support recreation centers. Technology fees fund enterprise software. Facility fees appear after renovations that rebrand dorms as living learning communities. The same square footage accrues a new revenue stream through naming and bundling. Families rarely parse the fine print. Cost of attendance wraps everything in one number that loans will meet. There's a governance tell. Boards increasingly include finance and real estate leaders whose fluency is capital strategy. Their questions focus on yield, occupancy, utilization, partnerships, ratings. Faculty senates talk curriculum and workload. The two conversations run in parallel until a crisis forces a collision. When they do meet, the frame is survival. We must invest to compete. We must cut to protect the core. Somehow, the core being protected looks like a campus brochure. Microstory. Facilities flags a deferred maintenance list. Steam pipes, roofs, labs with failing HVAC. The list is long and dull. A donor offers a naming gift for a new entrepreneurship pavilion, conditional on breaking ground this year. The board approves the pavilion. 6 months later, the steam pipe bursts during a cold snap. Classes move online for a week. The press release celebrates resilience. Here's where the arms race entangles identity. Students choose schools with stories about themselves. Universities now sell stories at scale through spaces. The result is a campus that photographs better every year, while the ratio of stable faculty to students slips and advising loads stretch. The brochure stays true. The amenities exist. The mission blurs. The budget says what matters. Meanwhile, the PPPs we traced earlier sit under these decisions. Long concessions on residence halls and dining lock and escalators that nudge fees up. Administrative shops monitor those contracts, not syllabi. Marketing teams fill beds as aggressively as admissions fills seats. It's all one funnel now. Applicants to admits to enrollees to residents to donors. The classroom is inside the funnel. It isn't the funnel. In the shadow of all this glass, some institutions push back. Teaching first budgets, transparency movements, coalitions demanding ratios that protect instruction. But the dominant model persists because the incentives are baked into the tax code, the loan program, the rankings, and the real estate. And the next ribbon cutting is already on the calendar. Endowments, hedge funds with classrooms attached. Follow the endowment and the campus map starts to make sense. Over 100 U.S. institutions now sit on endowments larger than $1 billion. At the top, Harvard's pool is roughly $50 billion. Yale and the University of Texas systems are north of $40 billion. Those aren't rainy day funds. They're investment machines with payout spigots calibrated to a decimal. The promise is stability. The practice looks like a hedge fund with classrooms attached. Inside the investment office, the mandate is growth with prudence. Asset allocations spread across public equities, private equity, venture capital, real estate, and hedge funds. The logic: diversify, harvest illiquidity premiums, compound over decades. A typical spending rule pays out roughly 4 to 5% of a trailing average each year. Donor restrictions fence off large slices for specific uses: professorships, scholarships, a named center. Limits that make pools look big while cash available for tuition relief stays small. The paradox meets families in the bursar line. They see charts of endowments breaking records and tuition rising anyway. Payout discipline is the explanation administrators give. If you spend more now, you shrink tomorrow's cushion. Governing boards treat that cushion like sacred ground. Investment teams are graded on returns, not sticker price reductions. So the endowment grows, fees to external managers flow, and the tuition line inches up with the consumer price index's more ambitious cousin. Real estate is a quiet through line. Endowments allocate to property directly and through funds. Universities hold land tax exempt. A ground lease on campus dirt spins off rent to the institution or an affiliate. Off campus, investment partnerships pursue life science labs and student housing, assets with sticky tenants and escalators. The brand helps create the market, then the portfolio harvests it. The accounting distinguishes endowment assets from operating ones, but the ecosystem is integrated. The crest attracts capital. Capital reshapes the campus. Fees are the part nobody loves to talk about. Private equity and venture commitments charge management fees and carry. Hedge funds layer on 2 and 20 structures. Large endowments negotiate, but very large sums can move out the door in manager compensation during bull runs. Those fees are paid to firms whose principals may sit on advisory councils or trustee boards. That isn't inherently corrupt, it's a small world. But the optics are hard to ignore when adjuncts teach freshman seminars for a fraction of a single partner's annual bonus. Payout rates become policy battles during crises. In downturns, market values fall while need spikes. Faculty ask for higher draws to protect instruction and aid. Finance committees point to smoothing rules and long-term targets. Some institutions temporarily lift payouts, many don't. When Congress floated an excise tax on the wealthiest endowments, arguments erupted about mission versus hoarding. The tax that emerged was narrow, symbolic. The broader question stayed. What's the social obligation of a tax-advantaged corpus built on public subsidies and charitable deductions? Restrictions complicate the story, but fungibility still matters. If an endowment underwrites a named chair, operating dollars can shift elsewhere. If a donor funds a building, debt capacity can be used on another project. Money moves around constraints with enough creativity. Meanwhile, payout policies remain conservative across cycles. Boards fear becoming the ones who broke the endowment. Students become the ones who borrow. Here's a human moment inside that abstraction. A financial aid officer reviews a file for a student with demonstrated need. The package includes institutional grant, subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, work study. The gap left after the grant is met with lines the student will service for decades. Down the street, the university's investment office approves a commitment to a new private equity fund focused on education-adjacent real estate. Both decisions are rational within their lanes. Together, they read like a split screen. Governance drives the lanes. Investment committees are stacked with finance professionals. They speak fluently about sharp ratios, drawdown risk, and rebalancing. Academic senates know syllabi and staffing. When the two worlds meet, they often meet through a narrow portal, an annual payout number already set by a formula. The strategy conversation, what the corpus is for at a mission level, rarely leaves a donor brochure. The operating conversation, what classrooms need, rarely penetrates the asset allocation memo. Not every large endowment hoards. Some tie gifts to need-blind admissions and no-loan policies. Some commit to higher payouts when tuition crosses affordability benchmarks. Transparency movements push for detailed endowment reports, fossil fuel divestment, manager fee disclosures, and clearer ties between investment gains and student costs. Those efforts reveal the machine. They rarely reset it. The incentives remain growth first. Endowments also insulate institutions from risk, sometimes the right risk. When a recession hits, having a cushion prevents layoffs and preserves aid. But the same cushion can encourage bolder capital bets. Bigger projects, more PPPs, wider real estate footprints. The comfort of a large pool can justify a strategy that keeps prices high because the market will bear them. Rankings reward per student expenditures. Donors reward prestige. Lenders reward predictability. The endowment anchors all three. So when families ask why their bill rose while the endowment soared, the honest answer is baked into governance. The pool serves perpetuity and prestige before price. The investment office isn't tasked with lowering tuition. It's tasked with compounding. The campus isn't just a school. It's the operating arm of a financial entity that must look invincible. Growth is the metric, which means students are the revenue, not the mission. Packaging the price, fees, differential pricing, and fine print. By now, the tuition line looks like the headline. The real story hides below it, in the fees, the surcharges, and the bundles that turn a degree into a subscription. Packaging is the business model. The question isn't just what's tuition. It's what's included, what's mandatory, and what can't you opt out of even if you don't use it. Cities like Boston have formal pilot requests. Institutions' non-instructional property often rides tax shields while fees fill gaps. Start with the quiet charges. Student activity fees that fund facilities you'll never visit. Technology fees that underwrite enterprise software and in-room routers locked to campus networks. Facility fees that appear after a renovation and stick long after the ribbon cutting. Each fee is small enough to sound reasonable. Together, they add a car payment to a semester. Housing and meals are the big levers. Many campuses require first years, and often sophomores, to live in university-affiliated housing with mandatory meal plans. That policy stabilizes occupancy for residence halls and dining operations, including public-private partnership contracts with rent escalators and revenue floors. The price isn't just the bed, it's the bundle, meal swipes priced above retail grocery equivalents, flex dollars that expire, community fees, and living learning surcharges for the same building with a rebranded floor. Differential pricing turns programs into mini cash cows. Business, engineering, and certain professional master's degrees carry premiums far above the campus average, justified by market rates and earnings potential. The revenue cross-subsidizes other units, but the signal to students is clear. Some majors are luxury goods. Inside departments, course-specific charges, lab fees, studio fees, licensing fees for software, stack on top of tuition, often without a clean opt-out. The posted price lists a seat. The invoice itemizes the seatbelt. The billing calendar is part of the trap. Charges hit in pulses that coincide with disbursement. Windows. Aid posts, loans disperse, then miscellaneous balances appear. Miss a payment by a day and late fees compound. A registration hold blocks class sign-up for a past due $50. A transcript hold blocks a job offer. The amounts are small compared with the debt, but the leverage is absolute because the institution controls access. Microstory. A junior opens her bill and finds a new facility renewal fee for her dorm, now dubbed a living learning community. Same room, same building, new label. She asks housing if she can opt out and rent across town for less. The advisor explains first priority placement goes to on-campus residents and warns about losing access to academic support built into the community fee. Her aid letter covers cost of attendance. The loan expands to fit the fee. Discounting complicates the picture. The institution advertises a high sticker and celebrates a generous award. But the net price creeps up as fees proliferate. Merit scholarships pull in high SAT, high-income students. Need-based grants stretch, then stop, leaving unsubsidized loans and Parent Plus to close gaps. The average paid rises even as the discount rate rises. Families think they negotiated a deal. The spreadsheet sees elasticity and slices of willingness to pay. Transfer rules monetize time. Credits that don't articulate. Residency requirements that force extra semesters. Course sequencing that makes it impossible to finish on time after a major change. Each adds months. Months add rent, meal plans, and fees bundled into cost of attendance. Loan programs oblige. The extra semester becomes revenue without raising tuition a dime. International students are the quiet ballast. Full pay enrollments stabilize budgets, especially in professional master's programs designed for volume and price. The tuition premium in those programs funds deficits elsewhere. Marketing targets geographies where students can pay list price. Advising and support stretch. The revenue looks like diversification. The experience can feel like throughput. Add-on services become profit centers. Study abroad with program fees, layered over partner costs. Health plans with opt-out hurdles, even when students have private coverage. Parking permits priced like downtown garages. Printing quotas and overage charges. Graduation fees for the privilege of receiving the diploma you already bought. None are illegal. All are engineered. Housing math deserves a second look. Off-campus apartments can be cheaper, but campus bundles fold convenience and compliance into a price that's hard to beat when aid is tied to enrollment status and cost of attendance. In PPP buildings, operators overlay amenity fees, furniture packages, and buy-the-bed leasing that prevents roommate savings. Escalators lift renewals by design. Appeals go to a help desk. Policies point back to contracts students signed when they were 17. The fine print lives in aid letters. Grants, subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans, and Parent Plus line up without hierarchy. Work-study reads like a discount, but depends on finding hours in a department with budget. Forbearance sounds like relief, but capitalizes interest. Income-driven repayment promises affordability, while balances grow in the background for years. Servicers, paid to service, not to counsel, nudge toward options that stretch the timeline. Packaging shapes behavior. When every path leads through a campus-operated gate, dining, housing, printing, parking, students accept the bundle as the price of progress. Families compare tuition, not total cost. The institution optimizes the rest because it can. Each microcharge feels defensible in isolation. Together, they're the architecture of extraction. And there's one last twist. Fees don't trigger the same political scrutiny as tuition. Legislators pound tables about tuition hikes. Fee schedules slide through committee as student life enhancements. The path of least resistance becomes the path of most revenue. The bill looks the same to a family. The governance looks different to a board. This is how the machine hides itself, behind headings, footnotes, and required for success boxes you can't uncheck. The price isn't just higher. It's designed. Collection machine, defaults, garnishments, and lifelong servicing. The bills don't stop when the tassel flips. That's when the collection machine turns steady. It starts quietly. An email from a servicer you didn't pick, a due date with options that sound humane, deferment, forbearance, income-driven repayment. The language feels like flexibility. The math is leverage. Miss a payment, and interest capitalizes. Pause a year, and the balance grows while you tread water. The loan you took to enter adulthood becomes the bill that defines it. Servicers are paid to keep accounts current, not to eliminate debt quickly. So they steer toward the path of least monthly pain. Forbearance is the easiest button. Payments pause. Interest adds to. Principal. The number creeps, then leaps. Income-driven plans promise affordability. 10 or 15% of discretionary income. Forgiveness at the end. But when your payment barely covers interest, the principal sits like a rock. Negative amortization looks calm on a portal and heavy on a life. Then there are Parent Plus loans. The backstop that turns a family into a lender when aid gaps widen. There's no strict cap keyed to income, and credit checks are light. Parents sign because the alternative is telling a kid no. Years later, they're in their 50s with a mortgage, 2 car payments, and a student loan bill bigger than both. Retirement becomes a negotiation with a servicer. When payments lapse, the government's toolkit is unlike any other creditor's. Wage garnishment doesn't require a court hearing in the same way consumer debt does. Tax refunds can be intercepted. Social Security checks can be offset. Bankruptcy relief is possible, but limited and costly to pursue. A decade after graduation, a borrower can be current, then behind, then current again, each cycle adding fees, capitalized interest, and stress. Microstory. A teacher in her 3rd year hits a rough patch. Car repair, move, a health bill that wasn't fully covered. She calls the servicer. The rep offers forbearance. It takes 5 minutes. 6 months later, her balance is higher though she paid nothing. A year later, she enrolls in an income-driven plan. The payment is small. The principal doesn't budge. She considers a second job. The license renewal course she needs costs a week's pay. She charges it. Collections aren't loud at first. They're persistent. Letters, then calls. If the loan defaults, the account moves to a collector. Fees stack. The government can garnish up to 15% of disposable pay administratively. Employers comply because they must. Tax time brings a surprise. A refund vanishes. 4 low-income families counting on that lump sum. The shock hits groceries and rent. The system treats it as recovery. Households feel it as a hit. Income-driven repayment has a long promise at the end. Potential forgiveness after 20 or 25 years, sometimes 10 for public service. If paperwork is perfect and rules don't shift. The history of miscounts and lost records shows how fragile that promise can be. Fixes arrive in waves. Borrowers spend lunch breaks on hold. Each policy tweak helps some and misses others. The timeline keeps stretching. Servicers' incentives shape behavior. They get paid a fee per account and face limited penalties for poor counseling. Steering borrowers into forbearance is cheaper than walking them through eligibility for a lower payment plan. That triage keeps delinquency numbers tidy for headlines and leaves balances swollen for decades. The interest meter keeps ticking. The software keeps scoring. The psychological toll is the part spreadsheets ignore. Debt turns risk into a hazard. Start a business? Not with drafts scheduled each month. Move for a better fit? Not if it means a gap in pay that triggers delinquency. Say yes to a lower-paying public service job? Not if it bumps you off a path to stability. Families organize around the bill. Marriages weigh joint finances against separate histories. Children factor into repayment math. Meanwhile, a cottage industry grows. Refinance offers flood mailboxes, marketing lower rates for credit-worthy borrowers with steady income and degrees that lenders like. Consolidation simplifies multiple payments and can reset terms. Private options relieve servicers of an account and relieve the borrower of federal protections. For many, it's a rational trade. For others, it closes doors they didn't know they'd need later. The collection machine also has teeth in the classroom. Transcript and diploma holds for small balances trap graduates at the starting line. A hospital job requires proof of degree. The registrar won't release it until a $200 charge is cleared. Employers grow impatient. The start date moves. A late fee posts. That gap wasn't about affordability. It was about control. Parent Plus turns into multi-generational planning. A mother in her 60s looks at her statement and does math with her son. He offers to take over payments informally. He's renting a campus-adjacent apartment owned by a PPP operator with a rent escalator built into the contract his loans helped support. The circle tightens. There's a path out, but it relies on structure. Aggressive payoff strategies require disposable income that many don't have. Income-driven plans require paperwork discipline for a generation. Public service loan forgiveness requires consistent qualifying payments with the right employer under the right plan. Each path is a maze with rules written by committees that change. The result is a quiet national portfolio of human caution. Debt shapes where people live, what jobs they take, when they start families, whether they speak up at work. It shows up in fewer small businesses, more delayed milestones, and a generation that measures dreams against an amortization schedule. The university collected its revenue years ago. The servicer collects now. The city backstopped the campus. The family backstops the loan. And the graduate, sitting in a courtroom while a judge reads an order, learns how a campus land deal and a federal program met in their paycheck. Winners circle, university boards, developers, and PE. Follow the signatures. In the boardroom, the finance committee chair clicks to a slide labeled strategic growth. Around the table sit developers, asset managers, and civic power brokers. Trustees whose fluency is capitalization, not curriculum. Their fiduciary duty runs to the institution's financial health. So the questions sound like a REIT earnings call. Occupancy, yield, ratings, pipeline. Mission fits on the cover slide. Margin lives in the deck. Student housing roll-ups and platform buys, like Blackstone's ACC acquisition, show how predictable student cash flows get financialized at scale. This is where incentives line up. Trustees with real estate backgrounds recognize the arbitrage in tax-exempt land and anchored demand. They don't need to conspire to prefer growth. The spreadsheet does it for them. Ground leases convert dirt into income without recording debt. Public-private partnerships push capital costs onto concessionaires and pull back a share through fees and rent escalators. If student demand is sticky and federal loans backstop payment, the project underwrites. Approval follows. Developers enter with a familiar pitch. They offer capital, delivery certainty, and operational expertise for residence halls, dining, research parks. In exchange, they secure multi-decade concessions, buy-the-bed leases, and occupancy support. The university's brand lowers marketing costs. Housing policies lock in freshmen. Priority portal placement funnels renewals. Add pilot-light parcels, and operating margins thicken. The developer's model bakes in annual step-ups. The operator's fee scales with revenue. The student's bill carries the weight. Inside these contracts, protections stack on the investor side. Minimum rent floors trigger if occupancy dips. Expense pass-throughs cover spikes in utilities and insurance. Replacement reserves get funded before surplus distributions. When inflation rises, CPI-linked escalators lift rents automatically. If a cohort struggles, the lender still sees coverage. The concession still earns. The only flexible line is the family's budget. Private equity sits one layer up. Funds raise capital on the thesis that student housing is resilient near selective and flagship campuses. They buy platforms like American Campus Communities and roll-up operators, centralizing software, purchasing, and marketing. Scale cuts costs. Data sharpens pricing. Pre-leasing targets squeeze discounts as the move-in clock ticks. The exit story is crisp. Predictable cash flows, captive demand, constrained supply. In a world hunting yield, those phrases are magic. The university's investment arm sometimes commits to those same funds. Endowment allocations flow to real estate, private equity, and infrastructure vehicles with exposure to education-adjacent assets. Fees move to managers tied by networks to the board. None of this violates a rulebook. It just means the institution can both create the market and profit from it indirectly. Students sit inside the ecosystem as revenue. Trustees steer it toward stability and growth. Now zoom to campus operations. Affiliated vendors, security, dining, parking, even consulting, win contracts through competitive processes that still favor scale and relationships. Some are related party deals routed through subsidiaries. Others are third parties embedded by long terms and renewal rights. The pattern is the same: fixed escalators and volume targets. A dining partner meets margin by nudging meal plans up. A parking affiliate lifts permits. A bookstore operator migrates to higher margin apparel and bundles digital access codes. Each contract hits its KPI. Each KPI leans on students. Small landlords across town feel the pressure. Buy-the-bed leases with parental guarantees and shuttle lines change the market. Amenity lists inflate expectations. University-adjacent premiums rise. Mom-and-pop owners can't match financing terms or brand halo. When a block flips to institution-linked housing, independent operators get squeezed. The landlord exits at a good price to a fund. Tenants return to an offer sheet with fees for community, tech, and furniture. Executives ride the same currents. Compensation ties to operating performance and bond ratings. Hit occupancy and net revenue targets. Keep ratios in covenant. Protect the outlook. Bonus is clear when EBITDA grows in auxiliaries and when fundraising lands pledge totals for new capital. Quality metrics exist, but they're easier to narrate than to monetize. When a choice pits a hiring line for advising against a rent escalator you can't renegotiate, the escalator wins by default. Microstory. A developer meets with the vice president for campus operations to discuss a Phase 2 housing tower. Enrollment is flat but stable. The Phase 1 building is at 99%. The spreadsheet shows demand. The ground lease term extends comfortably beyond the VP's tenure. The trustee-owned firm will consult on retail activation. The university's marketing team will push priority selection to sophomores. The VP asks about affordability optics. The developer points to a small scholarship fund embedded in the deal. They shake hands. Across the table, the city negotiates side payments, streetscapes, a transit contribution, a handful of discounted beds. The pilot number lands below a comparable tax bill. The mayor holds a ribbon. The university holds the ground. The developer holds the lease. Service calls rise. The budget gap shifts to homeowners. The winner's circle widens. Some trustees push back. A few ask for instruction-first guardrails, for affordability triggers tied to endowment payout, for shorter concessions, for full disclosure of related parties. Faculty and students demand transparency. Occasionally, a project pauses or a fee is rolled back. But the core machine remains because the incentives are consistent across cycles. Compounding on tax-favored land, predictable cash backed by federal loans, and contracts that push risk down while pulling revenue up. If you're wondering who wins, look at who gets paid regardless of a student's future income. Developers earn fees at closing and management fees for decades. Private equity collects management fees, performance carry at exit, and sometimes rent through related landlords. Trustees preserve ratings and grow portfolios. Executives hit bonus metrics. Lenders collect interest. The student pays last and longest. The city pays quietly and forever. This isn't a villain story. It's an incentive story. And incentives decide outcomes even when no one in the room says the word extraction. Models that work, teaching first budgets and public compacts. Not every campus runs on extraction. A few flip their spreadsheets to protect the things students actually buy. Time with great teachers. It starts with a question in the budget room. What percentage of unrestricted dollars goes to instruction and direct academic support? Then a rule. Raise it every year until it clears a publicly posted target. When the ratio becomes a promise, amenities stop driving the agenda. Classrooms do. Faculty coalitions and budget activism, documented by organizations like AAUP, show that transparent governance can redirect spend toward instruction. Transparent budgeting is the lever. Departments see the same numbers trustees see. Debt service, depreciation, auxiliary surpluses, financial aid, and instructional spend. Publish the charts. Track tenure lines, adjunct reliance, class sizes, advising loads. Tie executive bonuses to instruction ratios and student-to-advisor caps. not just operating margins and bond outlooks. The message changes fast when pay depends on pedagogy, not square footage. Tuition guarantees calm families and disciplined planners. Lock a cohort's tuition for 4 years and cap fee increases to inflation. Pair it with a cost of attendance pledge that includes housing and meals. If auxiliaries want to raise prices, they must show offsets elsewhere or accept thinner margins. Suddenly, a dining renovation is weighed against an advising hire because the bill to students can't creep by stealth. Housing co-ops and cost-controlled beds break the escalation ladder. Some campuses designate university land for nonprofit cooperatives with long ground leases, cost-based rents, and student governance. No amenity race, no by-the-bed premiums, no mandatory furniture packages. A modest reserve for repairs replaces investor returns. It doesn't photograph like a rooftop pool. It lowers dropouts linked to rent shocks and lifts persistence for first-gen students who need predictable bills more than halo lighting. Endowment reforms can fund this shift. Tie payout floors to affordability triggers. When net price as a share of median family income breaches a benchmark, the draw increases by a fixed increment for need grants and instructional hires. Protect the corpus with a glide path back down when conditions improve. Publish the rule. The investment office still optimizes, but the mission sets the spigot, not habit or fear of being the board that broke the endowment. On the city side, voluntary pilots turn into compacts with formulas. Peg payments to assessed value equivalents minus narrowly defined instructional space. Include escalators that match property tax growth. Earmark a share for fire, EMS, and schools serving campus-adjacent neighborhoods. In return, offer predictable permitting timelines and a clear map of where exempt expansion can go. Stability for the campus, services for the city, fewer late-night budget triage calls. Procurement can unwind quiet transfers. Require disclosure of related party bidders, publish concession contracts after execution, and cap CPI escalators unless wages for lowest-paid campus workers rise at the same pace. Add affordability riders to PPPs, a fixed percentage of beds priced below a campus-defined threshold with the university sharing. Revenue risk rather than pushing it onto students. If a project can't pencil without escalators that outpace aid, it doesn't belong on tax-favored dirt. Teaching first budgets also fix time. Audit degree maps, prune bottleneck prerequisites, guarantee seats in gateway courses, and honor transfer credits via statewide articulation. Promise a 4-year path, and pay for an extra term if the university's sequencing made it impossible. That pledge concentrates minds in scheduling meetings faster than any slogan about student success. Microstory. A mid-sized public posts its first instruction ratio report. It's under 40%. The president announces a 5-year climb to 50, links cabinet bonuses to annual progress, and freezes new non-academic hires unless the provost signs off. Amenities projects pause unless donors cover full life cycle costs. They reallocate travel budgets to hire academic advisors and fund writing centers. 2 years in, bottleneck courses clear. 4-year graduation rates rise 6 points. The gym's expansion waits. Applications don't fall. Parents notice the guarantee, not the foam pit. Municipal compacts can unlock housing without displacing neighbors. A city and campus co-design and overlay district. Mid-rise, car-light student beds on transit corridors. A hard cap on parking ratios, and a binding contribution to the local affordable housing trust per bed delivered. The campus commits to keep juniors and seniors out of first-year beds to stabilize renewals off campus. Small landlords breathe. Code enforcement focuses on safety, not turnover. Faculty and staff coalitions make the reforms stick. Shared governance expands to budget committees with access to line items, not summaries. Unions or senates negotiate class size ceilings and adjunct to tenure ratios. Student governments get a statutory role in fee approvals with an up or down vote and a published impact statement on unmet need. Sunshine changes behavior. So do rules with teeth. None of this requires perfection. It requires priorities. A campus can still build, with a full-cost test that includes pilot equivalents and endowment draws for aid. It can still partner, with concessions that share risk with the institution, not just with families. It can still market, with student-to-advisor ratios and time-to-degree guarantees instead of glass. And cities can still grow, with compacts that make services whole and neighborhoods livable. Policy built the old incentives. Boards and councils can write new ones on their own turf. When budgets start with teaching, the machine loosens its grip. When housing is cost-based, not brand-based, the rent stops eating the aid. When endowments pay for access, not optics, the crest begins to mean what it says. Policy levers, resetting incentives. Policy built the market. Policy can reset it. The trick is simple. Fund what we say we value, and stop subsidizing what extracts. Start where federal dollars touch every campus, the aid pipeline. Tie eligibility for Title IV funds to spending ratios that privilege instruction and direct academic support over administration and capital. If an institution can't hit a rising floor, say, a publicly reported share of unrestricted spend going to classrooms and advising, it risks phased limits on new federal loan disbursements. Give a runway. Make the ratios transparent. Publish them like graduation rates. Next, condition nonprofit tax advantages on local responsibility. Property tax exemptions exist to protect education, not to underwrite commercial footprints on free dirt. Require pilot equivalents for non-instructional property. A formula pegged to assessed value with escalators that mirror the city's tax base. Define instructional space tightly: classrooms, labs, libraries, not hotels, research parks with corporate leases, or student luxury villages. Tie bond approvals to proof of compliance. If a university wants the shield, it carries the civic load. Endowments need a trigger, not a headline. Set a national floor for payout at wealthy institutions when affordability breaks. If net price as a share of median family income crosses a benchmark, the minimum payout ratchets up for need-based grants and instructional hires until the metric recedes. Respect donor restrictions but require fungibility offsets. If a restricted fund frees operating dollars, the freed dollars must flow to the affordability accounts. Report it, audit it, make the exception the norm. Endowment growth supports access, not only prestige. Public-private partnerships need guardrails. Mandate disclosure of concession contracts, including rent escalators, occupancy guarantees, related parties, and CPI linkages. Cap escalators unless campus wage floors rise in tandem. Require affordability set-asides, beds priced below a campus-defined threshold, with shared risk between institution and operator. Ban minimum revenue guarantees backed by student fees. If a project can't pencil without locking students into ever-rising rent, it can't live on tax-favored land. Parent Plus and graduate lending are the open spigot-feeding price. Narrow it. Reintroduce sensible caps keyed to income and program costs. Require institutions to share default risk on a slice of plus and grad plus dollars. Skin in the game when price runs ahead of earnings. Publish program-level debt-to-earnings ratios annually. If a program fails a threshold for multiple years, restrict access to federal loans for that program until costs adjust. Crack open fee opacity. At the federal level, define tuition and fees to include mandatory bundles like housing, meal plans, technology, community, and facilities surcharges for Title IV disclosures. Institutions must present families an itemized, standardized cost sheet with opt-outs clearly marked and defaulted to no where alternatives exist. Ban transcript and diploma holds for balances under a reasonable threshold. Use civil debt collection, not academic leverage, to resolve disputes. Align rankings with reality. Condition federal data access for third-party rankers on their inclusion of affordability metrics. Instruction spend ratios, net price growth, time to degree, and post-graduation earnings versus debt. If a ranking system ignores cost and outcomes, it loses the federal data it needs to exist. Change the scoreboard and admissions incentives follow. On the municipal front, codify compacts. States can authorize cities to levy service fees on exempt institutions for police, fire, EMS, and infrastructure tied to documented campus impact, with credits for genuine community investments. Create overlay districts for student housing that trade height for affordability, transit funding, and contributions to local housing trusts. Ban the quiet conversion of taxable property to exempt status without a public hearing and a fiscal impact statement. Fix time to degree as policy. At the state level, enforce articulation pathways. If a general education course is passed at an accredited community college, it transfers and counts. Penalize public institutions financially for excess credits caused by poor sequencing or unnecessary prerequisites. Reward campuses that guarantee four-year maps, and fund an extra term if the schedule bottleneck is on them. Reform governance at the source. Require that boards of trustees at public and tax-advantaged private institutions include voting seats for faculty, staff, students, and local civic representatives. Mandate public posting of all major contracts, PPPs, and related party disclosures. Tie executive compensation to instruction ratios, affordability targets, and time to degree, not just bond ratings and auxiliary surpluses. Finally, change the borrower's terrain. Make income-driven repayment automatic upon entering repayment with annual income pulls, not opt-in with paperwork traps. Cap interest accrual so balances don't grow when payments meet income thresholds. Allow bankruptcy discharge under clearer standards after a set period. For Parent Plus, create an income-based option separate from the child's, with forgiveness at a reasonable horizon. Each lever resets a piece of the machine. None is magic alone. Together, they flip the incentives that turned campuses into portfolios. They don't forbid growth. They fund teaching first, price housing like shelter, not a brand, and make the loan a bridge, not a lifelong bill. What families can do now. You can't rewrite policy tonight, but you can change how you buy tomorrow. Start by forcing the numbers into daylight. Ask for an itemized total cost of attendance, tuition, mandatory fees, housing, meals, books, transportation, and miscellaneous. Then ask for the fee schedule behind the categories. Which fees are mandatory? Which are opt-out? Get it in writing. If a fee funds a facility you won't use, request a waiver. Appeals exist. Most families don't use them. Run the off-campus housing math yourself. University bundles hide premiums in convenience. Price a comparable apartment within transit distance, split by likely roommates, plus utilities, renter's insurance, groceries, and transport. Compare that to campus housing plus meal plan. Factor intangibles, time saved, safety, lease terms. If the campus's value is the portal and the shuttle, say it and quantify it. If off-campus wins by $300 a month, that's $3,600 a year, nearly $15,000 over 4 years before rent escalators. Negotiate aid every year. Treat the first offer as a draft. If peer schools gave more, share award letters and ask for a professional judgment review. If your financial situation changed, job loss, medical bills, elder care, document it. Admissions cares about yield. Financial aid can revisit grants when enrollment is on the line. If a grant suddenly becomes an unsubsidized loan on verification, push back. Ask for clarity on what changed and what alternatives exist beyond Parent Plus. If you're early in the journey, map a transfer path. 2 years at a community college with guaranteed articulation into a 4-year public cuts price without cutting options. The trick is sequencing. Meet with advisors on both campuses before the first semester to lock a course plan that transfers cleanly. Ask the receiving department to pre-approve the map by email. Every course that doesn't count later becomes months of rent and fees. Avoid the purgatory 5th semester. On borrowing, treat Parent Plus as a last resort. Max out lower-cost federal loans first, subsidized, then unsubsidized in the student's name. If Plus seems necessary, ask 3 questions. Could we downshift the housing/meal plan bundle, add a part-time campus job, or choose a cheaper program with stronger transfer options? If the answer is we still need Plus, borrow the minimum and revisit every term. Parent debt lingers into retirement. The monthly bill will outlast dorm nostalgia. Understand repayment choices before senior year. Income-driven plans can protect cash flow, but may let balances grow. Aggressive payoff saves interest but demands surplus income. For public or nonprofit jobs, verify eligibility for public service loan forgiveness early. Enroll in a qualifying IDR plan and certify employment annually. Keep digital copies of everything. If refinancing with a private lender is attractive later, remember you lose federal protections like IDR and PSLF. Trade-offs should be explicit. Here's a micro checklist to carry into calls and tours. Admissions. What's the average net price by income band? How much of last year's aid was loans? Will you match peer offers? Are scholarships renewable or GPA tripped? Financial aid. Itemize grants versus loans. Confirm work-study placements exist in the student's field. Ask how often verification changes awards. Request the appeal form. Bursar. List every mandatory fee, escalation policy, and appeal path. What triggers holds? At what balance? Our transcript and diploma holds used for small amounts? Housing. Are first-year/sophomore residency and meal plans mandatory? What are the opt-out criteria? Show the lease terms, rent escalators, and all add-on fees. Registrar. What's the 4-year graduation rate in the intended major? Will you pre-approve community college courses for summer? What's the policy on excess credit charges? Career services. Employer pipelines in the student's area? Internship support? Outcomes by major with median pay and debt at graduation. Work the calendar. If a university front-loads merit aid and lets it erode, you'll feel it sophomore year. Ask for a 4-year aid projection with assumptions about GPA and credit load. If a scholarship requires a 3.5 to renew, stress test it with the intended major's grade distribution. A 3.2 in engineering isn't the same as a 3.2 in the brochure. If aid evaporates, what's the mid-course exit plan without losing credits? Use course catalogs like contracts. Before committing, pull the degree map and check when bottleneck courses run. If a required class is fall-only and capped, ask how seats are guaranteed. If they can't guarantee, that's a red flag for time to degree and dollars. If a department is collapsing sections into larger lectures with fewer TAs, learning and costs will diverge. Study abroad. Price it as a separate product. Some campuses layer program fees atop partner costs. Compare direct enroll at the host institution versus the home. University's package. Credits must transfer pre-approved in writing. If the cost is higher than a semester at home, ask why. Experience isn't a line item the loan should carry blindly. For families already in repayment, automate resilience. Enroll in autopay to lower rates where offered. Set calendar reminders for IDR recertification. Keep a 1-month buffer in a separate account to avoid last-minute forbearance. If delinquency looms, call before you miss, not after, and ask specifically for IDR, not forbearance. Finally, be candid about fit and ROI. A flagship with need-based aid can beat a private with glossy amenities and weak grants. A commuter plan with a strong co-op program can beat a dorm with a pool. A major with internships and licensure pathways can beat one with debt and no hiring corridor. The goal isn't prestige. It's mobility without a lifelong bill. You can't dismantle the machine alone, but you can refuse to feed it blindly. The difference is a spreadsheet, a set of questions, and a willingness to walk when the answers don't add up. The reveal, the hidden land clause. We're back at that table in the courtroom. The diploma sits next to a manila folder while the clerk reads the order. Wages will be garnished to repay federally backed student loans. The graduate's attorney flips to a lease the school called campus housing. Buried on page 9, under ground lease rider, one sentence explains the whole machine. The dorm wasn't owned by the university. It sat on university land under a long ground lease to a private operator. That single line cross-referenced an exhibit the student never saw. It bound the building's rent escalators to a schedule set years earlier, 3% annual bumps, or CPI if higher, payable first before anything else. The university's crest on the lobby wall? A license. The checks, routed to a concessionaire whose lender monitored occupancy. Here's how the money actually traveled. In August, federal loans dispersed to the bursar. Tuition posted. Then housing and meal charges hit. The living learning community fee, the technology fee, the base rent. The student accepted the package because first years had to, and sophomores faced priority penalties if they didn't. The bursar swept the housing balance to the affiliate. The affiliate remitted base rent to the project LLC. The LLC sent operating cash to pay staff and utilities, then funded a replacement reserve, then wired debt service to the lender. Whatever remained met the ground rent due to the university or its real estate affiliate under the ground lease. The escalator ticked regardless of that student's mid-year job loss. The clause also tied occupancy guarantees to enrollment. If the building dipped below a threshold, a true-up payment kicked in, paid from auxiliary revenues or a standby fund. The risk of empty beds moved away from investors and over to the institution's balance sheet. Students didn't know there was a guarantee. They felt it as earlier renewal deadlines and stricter residency policies. The developer's model assumed federal dollars would keep cash flowing because cost of attendance included housing. It was right. Now look at the tax line. The land was exempt, the improvement sat on it. A voluntary pilot covered a fraction of what a comparable property tax bill would. Fire crews trained for the lab across the quad. Police overtime spiked at move-in weekends. Roads got repaved on the shuttle route. The city sent no bill to the dorm. It sent one to homeowners across town. The lease rider that hid inside a student contract rested on a public subsidy no one named at orientation. The final turn is always personal. After graduation, the job paid enough to cover rent and groceries, not the lump sum invoice the servicer wanted. A call led to forbearance. Interest capitalized. Months later, an income-driven plan set a small payment that didn't touch principal. The balance grew quietly while the building's escalator kept climbing. The lender got paid, and the ground rent stepped up. Years later, a missed recertification triggered a spike. A tax refund vanished. Then the courtroom. When the attorney walked the judge through the documents, the pattern landed. Federally originated debt funded a private concession on tax-exempt land through a university portal that implied control. The clause made the priorities explicit. Rent, reserves, and debt service first, students' future earnings later. The graduates stared at the page and realized they had financed a building they'd never own, on land the campus would never tax, inside a contract designed to rise faster than aid. Trace every dollar. Loan disbursement to bursar, bursar to affiliate, affiliate to operator, operator to lender and reserves, surplus to ground rent, pilot check to city, garnishment order to employer, payment to servicer, interest to principal. Each step is legal. Together, they turn a degree into collateral and a dorm into a bond with a line into a paycheck. That hidden line wasn't an accident. It's the architecture. It's why rent escalators feel inevitable, why residency rules harden, why community fees don't budge, and why the city's budget strains while the residence hall brochure glows. It's the quiet sentence that connects public subsidy, private return, and personal debt, resolution and meaning. Degrees became revenue streams, campuses became portfolios, and students became the collateral wrapped around ground leases and escalating fees. The dynamics are fueled by tax-favored land, voluntary pilots that rarely match full freight, endowments optimized for compounding, and a housing market financialized by private equity. If you want the follow-up on endowment payout triggers and a step-by-step aid negotiation playbook, subscribe and watch the next episode. Don't miss the checklist download in the description. It'll save you money before you sign anything.